Hello, welcome to Microfiche Microphone. I'm Micah, and on this channel we're looking at microfiche from the past, old newspaper articles in the public domain. We look at them with our modern eyes, our modern perspective, and see what we can learn from them. On this microfiche time capsule, we are looking back at the improvement era from October 1963. And this article is entitled President Henry Dinwoodey Moyle, 1889 to 1963, by Gordon B. Hinckley of the Council of the 12. So, as promised, I am not quite finished covering all of the presidency, the first presidency of the church, and I'm going to stick to articles from the past before 1970, so that we will only cover people who are covered from then. And that way, we can never possibly overlap with anyone who is still alive. And I just really prefer that. I don't think that I want to invade anyone's privacy. Plus, I don't want to get into anything that is copyrighted. Now, is this copyrighted? Question mark. I'm actually not sure. If it is, this is pretty much considered fair use. I'm not overly concerned about that issue. But just because I do say at the beginning, in general, I look at things in the public domain. So why am I not sure? Well, if the copyright was renewed, then it is still in force. If it was not ever renewed, then it is in the public domain. So it may be in the public domain, it might not be. So here we are. Anyways, I just wanted to cover that really quickly. As mentioned, we have covered all of the members of the First Presidency that are covered by the Biographical Encyclopedia. I'm also not repeating anyone we've already looked at in the past. I think that while some of them weren't very complete, at least we have something about them. So let's concentrate on people we don't have anything on, and maybe eventually I will go back to some of the other ones again. But yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we cleared that up first. But what do I know about Henry D. Moyle? That's a great question. I don't think I know very much at all. The only thing I think of about Henry D. Moyle is he's in the First Presidency, or was, obviously. He's not alive anymore. And that he... I associate his name with welfare work, so I feel like he had something to do with welfare work. But I can't really put my finger on it, and so yeah, this is going to be a lot of new information for me. And yeah, if you know more about it, please leave a comment below, because I am always interested in what other people know about and what they don't. Anyways, so let's take a look. Immediately, there are a couple of pictures. This first one says President and Sister Henry D. Moyle at home. It looks like his wife played piano from that picture. I don't know if he did or not. Then there's another picture, President Moyle at the time of the dedication of the Bern, Switzerland chapel. Okay, cool. So he was involved with dedicating a chapel, I guess. If you look in the background, I think that might be the Swiss temple behind him. I'm not 100% sure, but it could be. It's very blurry, so it's hard to tell for sure. But anyways, so let's take a look at the article. Like I said, I don't know much about this person, so I'll be interested to find out more about them. Know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize? So run that ye may obtain. I therefore so run, not as uncertainly, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air. 1 Corinthians, that's a scripture? Holy cow. 1 Corinthians 9, 24 and 26. I'm sorry, I have no idea what they're trying to say. Something about running and something about, I don't know, beating something. I don't get it. I really don't. Okay. Sorry. That's funny. Okay. These words from Paul, perhaps more than any other scripture, characterize the life of President Henry Dinwoodey Moyle. They became a repeated theme as he spoke to missionaries in many parts of the world. All are in the race, but only one receiveth the prize, he was wont to say. What does that mean? What are you trying to say? I don't know, it sounds a bit elitist. I am better than you, so, I don't know, I don't like it. Weird. I'm hoping he had a different point, but, I don't get it. Okay. He believed in achievement. He ran with the competition wherever he found it, and not uncertainly. He fought for the causes in which he believed, not as one that beateth the air. I don't get it. I'm sorry, I just don't. Now the fight is over. The prize is won. Is it, though? He just said only one person gets the prize. So what do you mean? I don't get it. I'm sorry. I'm obsessing about this. Okay. This metaphor is over my head. I don't understand it. Okay. He passed away quietly in his sleep in the early morning, September 18th, 1963, at the age of 74, having been born in Salt Lake City, April 22nd, 1889. In his office hangs a painting of the master calming the stormy sea. It is titled Peace Be Still. It is characteristic of the man in his life and death, okay? Wherever he went, the impact of his tremendous personality and the strength of his trained mind soon began to stir the quiet and shake the lethargic. So he was a good motivator? Is that what you mean? He was a champion, a crusader, a clear-thinking, unequivocating exponent of any cause he espoused, unrelenting in his advocacy. That is a very difficultly worded sentence. They could have said it very, simpler. I'm just saying. Then one night at the close of a strenuous day came rest and a sleep without an awakening immortality. Peace be still. Well, I'm pretty sure that happens to everyone who dies. Yes? Right now, I'm not super excited about this writing style. Come on. Paul was his favorite writer, which is ironic because this is written by Gordon B. Hinckley, and I've read books by him, and they're great. But this one, I don't know. I don't get it. Paul was his favorite writer, and Paul wrote his epitaph when he wrote his own. I have fought a good fight. I have finished my course. I have kept the faith. Henceforth there is laid up for me a crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, shall give me at that day. 2 Timothy 4:7-8. His restless strength was an inheritance from strong forebears. His character was the blend of a remarkable inheritance. The Moyles came from Cornwall, where England reaches a rough finger into the Atlantic. The storms of centuries have lashed its rocky surface, testing its strength, but also leaving a green and rugged beauty. Yeah, but he wasn't born there. Like his ancestors were from there. I never understand the talking about people's ancestors. Dude, so if I am the descendant, my great-great-grandfather was like a convict and a murderer and was hanged, does that mean that I am a bad person? No, it doesn't. It absolutely does not. So what in the world does it make a difference if your forebears were good people? See what I mean? We're talking about a single person. We're not talking about their ancestors. I'm just saying. I'm sorry. That just annoys me. Right now, I'm a bit annoyed by this article. I'm hoping it gets better. Okay. The Moyles were stonemasons, strong of body, independent in thought, hardworking and courageous. More than a century ago, 2 Mormon missionaries knocked at the home of John Rowe Moyle and asked for the privilege of holding a meeting. They were invited in. To the people of the community, this was like opening the door to the plague. Oh gosh. But John Moyle, President Moyle's great-grandfather, was moved by convictions and not by popular sentiment. The family was baptized into the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. James, one of the boys and the grandfather of President Moyle, wrote of the occasion of his baptism, I covenant with the Lord that I would serve him through good and evil report. It was the turning point of my life. Okay. Cool. The Dinwoodies were drawn from Lancashire. Henry Dinwoodey, President Moyle's maternal grandfather, and whom he somewhat resembled physically, was born in the shadow of the mills, the smokestacks, and the pit heads that mark this great industrial area of England. Okay. Left fatherless at the age of 13, he became an artisan in the manufacture of fine furniture. The substantial business in Salt Lake City that bears his name is the lengthened shadow of his pioneer enterprise. Okay, I'm kind of flying through this. Like I said, I'm not that into talking about people's ancestors as if it reflected that much on them. Okay, good fruit comes of good stock. I'm actually okay with them talking about his parents. Yeah, because that directly affected him. But his grandparents, his great-grandparents, his great-great-great-grandparents, who cares? Who cares? It's not important. It's not relevant. Okay? That's just my opinion. Good fruit comes of good stone. This fact of life was clearly evident in the nature of Henry D. Moyle. His father, James H. Moyle, was a giant of a man in his physical bearing and in his achievements. He was one of Utah's first lawyers. He was a dynamic force in politics. He served as Assistant Secretary of the Treasury under appointment from President Woodrow Wilson, and as United States Commissioner of Customs under appointment from President Franklin D. Roosevelt. So he was involved in politics. His father was, yeah. He was obedient to the call of the priesthood, and at an age when most men are in retirement, he was asked to preside over the Eastern States mission of the church. That's kind of a big calling at the time, yeah. While serving in this capacity, he helped begin the great annual pageant at the Hill Cumorah, America's Witness for Christ. The figure of Moroni, which stands atop the hill, bears the likeness of this man who presides over the mission at the time it was sculptured. Really? They used his likeness to sculpt Moroni? That's weird. Huh. I guess you have to use somebody. I get it. Okay. You have to use somebody. I'll take it. Henry Moyle's mother was Alice Dinwoodey, a woman of refinement and of artistry with a love of the beautiful. From her came a priceless endowment of faith, of humor, of simple and unaffected graciousness, of appreciation for thoroughness in planning and good craftsmanship in execution. His mind was educated. He commented on one occasion, "At one time my father was afraid I would never go to the university, and then he was afraid I would never get through going." Okay, so he took a break then in between high school and college, probably military service, I'm guessing, and then came back, went to college, and kept going to college for years. Okay. Although he spent 9 years in university training, in 1909 he received a Bachelor of Science degree from the University of Utah in mining engineering. He spent 9 years in college and only got a bachelor's? Now I'm asking myself why. Like, did he only go half-time? I guess that's a possibility. Or is there some reason? Like, did he change the subject several times? I don't know. That is unusual. He then served a mission to Germany, and following his release in 1912, he enrolled in the University of Freiberg, where he took a year's study in geology. Okay. So mining, engineering, and geology. Okay, who else had something similar? I think it was Richard R. Lyman? Yeah? Like, I feel like he was the one that was the geologist. Was he not? Also, James E. Talmadge, I believe, was a doctor of geology, yeah? Upon returning to Salt Lake City, he again entered in the University of Utah and took out another degree of science. Okay, yeah, I can see why his father was like, "Are you ever going to be done going to college?" And he then went to the University of Chicago Law School, and from there to Harvard to complete his law studies. Okay, he must have been solidly in his 30s at that point. Law became his profession. He built an enviable practice on the merit of his ability. He was recognized as an aggressive protagonist and an unyielding defender. He regarded himself as an equity lawyer. He disliked rigidity in the laws as in all else. For 25 years, he taught principles of equity at the University of Utah. These were of his very nature. Judgment, in his opinion, should be based on morals, ethics, and circumstances rather than unyielding and impersonal rules. Yeah, well, I kind of agree. Oh, there's another picture, and I think I just missed a picture. Let me go back to it. Hang on. Go back to the earlier picture. There's this picture. And it has no caption, so I don't know who these people are. I'm sure that they were probably recognizable at the time. It means nothing to me. Okay. And then this picture. President Moyle was one of the forceful speakers of the church. Okay. So it's not really groundbreaking stuff, but, you know. It was characteristic of his entire life. He recognized the need for law and order, but above these was the application of Christian love and an appreciation of human worth. When questions of discipline arose in the affairs of the church, he constantly pleaded that our responsibility is to save and not to condemn. The law was but one of many interests, and he excelled with dynamic enthusiasm in all of them. He possessed tremendous physical vitality. His mind was flexible and alert. He had the self-discipline to unite both, and used his strength to achieve remarkable accomplishments. He detested mediocrity. He pleaded with young men to live above it. In speaking to them of their possibilities, he put a solid pedestal under their feet and a new star before their eyes. "You can do anything you want to do," was a frequently repeated statement as he spoke to missionaries. Okay. Okay. Life is an opportunity to be lived with enthusiasm and with seriousness, and not to be frittered away. Such was his philosophy. To a group in Amsterdam, he declared on one occasion, "Life is a serious thing. If there is any one thing you can learn on your missions, in addition to a testimony of the Lord Jesus Christ, it is to learn the seriousness of life." He so lived it, whether as a young missionary in Germany, as United States Attorney pleading a cause of justice, as an executive building a new business, as an apostle testifying of the divinity of the Lord. He was unrelenting, consistent, and persuasive in his advocacy. His law practice led naturally to widely ranging business interests. These included transportation, with directorships of one of the major railroads and one of the great trucking firms in the nation. That doesn't really seem to go with, like, what he'd studied and stuff. Like, okay, weird. Oil. He, with his brothers and close friends, organized 3 refining companies and built them into highly successful and prosperous businesses. He also served as consultant to one of the great refining corporations of America. If I'm not mistaken, but I believe oil refineries is one of the few, kinds of businesses that is always profitable, is it not? So, Also, it tends to be quite environmentally bad. So I don't know. I'm not that excited about that. But I guess as a geologist, he would know something about it. I don't know. Ranching and livestock. He served as president of a large firm owning thousands of acres of choice land in the high valleys of Utah and Wyoming. Mining, with training in geology, mining, and law. He handled extensively mining litigation in the West. Yeah, that one doesn't surprise me at all. And banking, insurance, and finance. He was at home with men in these fields all over the nation. Okay, the last one they just threw in there because, honestly, you have your hand in that many pies. You're gonna need to have a solid, grasp of finance and banking because, you have to have all your T's crossed and all your I's dotted because, taxes and law degrees and things legally kinds of things are going to be very relevant to you, and you're going to have to make sure that everything is declared properly. And so the fact that he is has some sort of investment into banking and insurance and finance, that's not a surprise at all, because these kind of practices require money. And if you have money, you have to be able to handle the money well. Yeah. And that's not something everybody can do. So, his sound judgment and his business acumen became an invaluable asset to the church and the administration of its affairs. Well, good, I guess. This is not the first person who is he's really good with money, and then he became prominent in the church. I get that they need money too. And they need some money people. But it always kind of disappoints me. Yeah. It's okay, being good with money, but that's quite materialistic. That's really not what Jesus Christ was about. I'm just saying. I know that that's being really annoying and picky and whatever, but it's true. I'm just saying. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm not trying to be critical of this person I don't know at all. But right now, I'm not getting the best impression of him from this article. It sounds to me like he liked to learn and was very curious. He got into some business-related kinds of things. He started studying geology and science, and then he switched to law and realized that he could make more money that way. That's what it sounds like to me. And, I don't know. I get needing money. I get. But it's just disappointing to me. That's all. All right, moving on. Following the pattern of his father, he took an active interest in the affairs of government and made a significant contribution to civic affairs. In World War I, he was commissioned a captain of infantry. Yeah, because World War I. At that point, he was pushing 40, was he not? That's why he was an officer. In World War II, with the very life of the nation depending on the availability of gas and oil, he was appointed a director of the Petroleum Industry Council and chairman of refining for District 4, which included the Mountain West area. Yeah, that's quite a high up position, but at the same time, it's he probably had a vested interest in it. So, he was later named a director of the National Petroleum Council. Oil executives over the nation became his intimate friends and respected him for his judgment, his dynamic handling of problems, and the goodness of his life. Okay, so that's good. Recognized for good things that he did. Water also became a challenging interest to him. He fully realized that the growth of the West depended on conservation of water and its best use. Governor George D. Clyde has said of him, as a member of the Utah State Water Board, he rendered great service to the people of Utah. He has in very deed been a self-sacrificing public servant in times of national stress and in meeting the continuing needs of the people. Continued on page 888. So, let's jump down. President Henry D. Moyle continued from page 842. Okay. But with all this activity, two other interests were paramount in his life: his church and his family. He loved both with a loyalty that could never be doubted. He knew that the things of earth are transient, but that the associations and values of church and family are eternal. From the time he was ordained to the Aaronic priesthood in the old 12th Ward in Salt Lake City, to the evening of his death, he was a Latter-day Saint, true and faithful. At the age of 20, he was called to the Swiss-German mission. They mentioned that already. His first field assignment was the great city of Zurich, Switzerland. While he was yet scarcely able to speak the language, he led the mission in proselyting. Really? I find that really difficult to believe. Okay, he became proficient in the German tongue and never lost the use of it. Yeah, that sounded like it when they were describing some of the things. Like, he went to a university in Freiberg. You can't just randomly go to university in Germany without being at least a C1 level. Maybe his program was in English, but it probably wasn't, especially at the time that he would have gone. He loved the people of Germany and Switzerland, among whom he labored. They were held in affection by him all of his life. Next to America, the land of his birth, he loved the German language countries of the Europe. Okay, that's cool. Although he had traveled over a major part of the earth, he chiefly enjoyed going back to Germany, Switzerland, and Austria. I think that's cool. Especially being familiar with the culture and the language. Yeah, I get it. This in itself is a commentary on his effectiveness as a missionary, for we learned to love most those we serve best. Okay. I'm not sure if I would say it's a commentary on his effectiveness as a missionary. But okay, if you want to consider it then. It was heartwarming to see him with the German-speaking members of the church. It was fascinating to witness the eager response of those people as he spoke to them in Deutsch. In the missionary department of the church is an old record book from which the leather binding is peeling. It contains the mission president's confidential appraisal of Henry D. Moyle. Okay. It reads, under date of December 30th, 1911, qualifications as a speaker, very good. As a writer, good. As a presiding officer, very good. Knowledge of the gospel, good. Has he been energetic? Very. Okay. I like that. From 1927 to 1937, he served as president of Cottonwood Stake. Well, they didn't mention that until now. Cool. During this time, the tragic depression of the 30s overwhelmed the nation and much of the world. The answer of the church in meeting the needs of the people was the welfare program organized in 1936. Henry D. Moyle was named a member of the General Committee, and a year later was designated its chairman. Here again, his dynamic leadership was apparent. With his close associates, elders Harold B. Lee and Marion G. Romney, now of the Council of the 12, he led this work from the feeble beginnings to the tremendous stature it has reached today. Yeah, exactly. I thought I had associated with him with welfare somehow. Yeah. Cool. Scores and hundreds of projects scattered over the earth, producing food and clothing, preserving, conserving, and creating are testimony of this leadership. Small wonder it is that when Charles A. Callis of the Council of the 12 passed away in the spring of 1947, Brother Moyle was called by President George Albert Smith to fill the vacancy in the quorum. He was in New York City on business when General Conference was convened. President Smith telephoned him. President Moyle returned immediately and was sustained by the membership of the church in his sacred calling. He immediately turned over business to others, locked his desk, and never went back. This was the nature of the man. Okay, you have to respect that. As much as he was going after money for a long time, he was willing to walk away from it. Although at that point, having so much property and so much, things that kind of run themselves, I'm wondering how much of that was passive income. Yeah, like maybe he did have enough passive income at that point that he didn't really need to work anymore anyway. I don't know though, maybe. It's still admirable. It's still admirable to just immediately walk away from your business and say church is more important, yeah? In 1959, following the death of President Stephen L. Richards, President McKay presented the name of Henry D. Moyle to become second counselor in the first presidency. With the death of President J. Reuben Clark Jr. in 1961, President Moyle was sustained first counselor in the first presidency. During the 4¼ years of his service in the highest council of the church, the strength of his personality and the ardor of his faith have been felt across the church with an impact seldom equaled. He has become an example to the entire membership in his unyielding loyalty to President McKay. Okay, hang on a second. That's the second time they've mentioned a strong personality. I'm wondering what they mean by that. Like, how strong of a personality was it? You know, was he steamrolling other people, or was he just, did he have strong opinions? You know what I mean? Like, I wonder what they mean by that. He has never spared his strength or time in furthering the work. He has lifted his voice in testimony in the great cities and the small hamlets of the nations of the world, in humble cottages and in great halls. There has never been a word of equivocation, a shadow of doubt in his witness of the reality of God, of the divinity, of the divine sonship of the Lord Jesus Christ, of the factuality of the restoration of the gospel. His driving power of persuasion, his logic, his gift as a trained advocate have all been employed with deep sincerity in testifying of these things. Coincident with his coming into the first presidency, he was named chairman of the missionary committee. Building on the substantial foundation laid by his predecessors, he proceeded to put the weight of his faith and strength into this program. There were approximately 5,000 missionaries in the field at the time. Today, there are 12,000. And today, it's even more, yeah? He toured the missions, he testified, he pleaded, he urged, he challenged. Mine was the opportunity to travel with him in many parts of the world. In the person who wrote this was Gordon B. Hinckley, so he probably did travel with him. In 23 days during July of 1962, we held day-long meetings with all of the missionaries in the 21 missions of Europe and the British Isles. I bear witness of his unrelenting drive and his untarnished devotion to this great work, of his unforgetting love for the young men and women who are in the world as ambassadors of the truth and ambassadors of the Lord, and witnesses of his truth. During this period, 267,669 converts came into the church. President Moyle's memory will be preserved in their lives and in the lives of the generations who come after them because of the part he played in this great work. His nature was not at all robust strength. He had a gentle side that was enriching to know and rewarding to be near. His life was not without disappointment. He knew the meaning of sorrow. Prayer was his solace. He talked to the Lord as one man speaketh with another. Prayer was his comfort, prayer and a few who loved him dearly. First among these was his treasured companion. She was the sweetheart of his life. It was evident his manner reflected the depths of his affections. He married Alberta Wright, October 17, 1919. The years that followed brought the next precious of his possessions, his sons and daughters, able and faithful men, beautiful and gifted women, who loved their father. What a family they are! No man could have a greater treasure, and this for all eternity. His cup was filled, yes, to overflowing. He drank deeply. He loved life, the storms of it, the peace of it, the tall mountains, the quiet valleys. He knew them all. He was a forceful part of them. In an old notebook written in his bold, sure hand, we found these words: "No fonder hope, no higher ambition, no more lofty goal can be imagined than eternal life in the kingdom of our Father with those we love." Milestones mark life of service. Some milestones in the life of President Moyle. 1889, born April 22nd in Salt Lake City, a son of James H. and Alice Dinwoodey Moyle. 1909, graduated from the University of Utah with a degree in mining engineering. At age 20, yes? Called as a missionary to Germany. Released 1912, released from mission, entered the University of Freiburg. Okay, studied geology 1 year. Okay. 1912, so he was 23. 1913, at 24, returned to Salt Lake City, entered the University of Utah to study science and law. 1915, at the age of 26, received a degree in law from the University of Chicago, later studied at Harvard University, admitted to the Utah State Bar Association, joined the law faculty of the University of Utah, where he served 25 years. 1916, at the age of 27, began private law practice in Salt Lake City. Is that right? 27. Yeah, that's right. 1918, at the age of 28, discharged from the U.S. Army after serving as a captain in the 21st Infantry, named U.S. Attorney for Utah, and served 2 years. 1919, at the age of 30, married Alberta Wright, October 17th in the Salt Lake Temple. 1927, oh geez, we just skipped a whole bunch of years. 38, yeah. Sustained as president of the Cottonwood Stake, a position he held for 10 years. Okay. 1936. Okay, I'm going to stop doing the ages because it's irrelevant. He was an adult, yeah, okay. In his 40s at that point. Named a member of the original General Church Welfare Committee. 1937, appointed chairman of the General Welfare Committee. 1940, nominated to run for governor of Utah on the Democratic ticket, but was defeated at the state convention. 1943, called to the Petroleum Industry Council to head refining committee for Rocky Mountain District No. 4. Later served on the successor organization known as the National Petroleum Council. 1947, sustained April 6th as a member of the Council of the 12. Ordained April 10th, 1947 by President George Albert Smith. 1954, returned to Salt Lake City on March 24th from a 4-month tour of Europe, where he met all mission presidents, reported favorable progress of Swiss temple construction. 1955, participated in dedication of the Swiss temple, September 11th. Good job. See, I figured he was probably there. I saw that in the background, yeah? 1956, attended March 11th dedication of the Los Angeles Temple, left Salt Lake City in April on a 4-month tour of South America, Central America, and Mexico. That's unusual. He was mostly concentrated on Europe, yeah? First time he went anywhere in Latin America. 1958, delivered baccalaureate address at Utah State University, June 6th, attended dedication of the London Temple, September 7th. 1959, was cited on his 70th birthday by fellow workers for more than 21 years as chairman of the Church General Welfare Committee. Okay, still involved in welfare. 1959 again, called by President David O. McKay, June 13th, to serve as second counselor in the first presidency to fill vacancy created by the death of May 19 of President Stephen L. Richards, who was succeeded as first counselor by President J. Reuben Clark Jr. 1959 again, was set apart June 18 as a member of the First Presidency in special ceremony in the Salt Lake Temple. President McKay officiated. Later was released as General Welfare Committee Chairman and placed in charge of the missionary program of the church. Okay, and 1959 again, cited for Consolidated Freightways Inc. for service. And, moving on to 1960, made a special trip in December to Europe to meet with mission officials and check on London Temple tax matters. Yeah, he would be qualified to do that, yeah, as a lawyer. 1961 was baccalaureate speaker, June 2nd, at Brigham Young University, commencement in Provo, given honorary degree of Doctor of Humanities, June 2nd. Well, congratulations. 1961 again, named a member of the Board of Directors of the Denver and Rio Grande Western Railroad, July 17. 1961 again. I know that they're just doing different topics, but I want to make sure that we know that this is not a new year. Yeah, this is the same year again. Named first counselor in the first presidency, October 12, to fill the vacancy created by the death of President J. Reuben Clark Jr. 1961 again, toured the mission of the church in Europe for 5 weeks, returned before the end of the year, and reported extensive growth of the church. 1962, delivered the baccalaureate address May 3rd at Utah State University, graduation rites. 1962 again, spent the month of July touring 21 missions of the church in Europe. And then 1963, which was the year this was written, so there's nothing after that, represented the church in February in its tax suit with the British government, appearing before the House of Lords. Also toured several European missions before returning to Salt Lake City. 1963 again was presented the Utah National Guard Minuteman Award March 1st for outstanding service to the Guard. Huh. I didn't even know he was involved in the National Guard. But he was in the military a little bit, yeah? During World War I. 1963 passed away at Deer Park, Florida, while inspecting church property there September 18th. 1963 funeral service held in Salt Lake Tabernacle under the direction of President David O. McKay, September 21st. All right, so we got through the article. So this was written right after his death. It sounds like he didn't serve very long in the Quorum of the 12. He was called in the 40s, and then he died in the 60s. Yeah, like that's not a super long time. I guess less than 20 years? I feel like it's like 15 I think is closer to it, yeah? So Henry D. Moyle. Let's take a look, do some fact checking, and yeah, see if there's anything that we missed, which there might be. You never know. All right, it's not too long, so let's just read through it. Henry Dinwoodey Moyle, April 22nd, 1889 to September 18th, 1963, was a member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and the First Presidency of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, LDS Church. Early life. Moyle was born in Salt Lake City, Utah Territory to politician James Moyle and his wife Alice Dinwoodey. He studied at the University of Utah and served as an LDS church missionary in Switzerland and in Germany. During World War I, Moyle served in the U.S. military. Yeah, all stuff we've talked about. Moyle continued his studies in the University of Chicago and Harvard Law School. He was also a student at the School of Mines in Freiberg, Saxony. So, okay, they misspelled it in the article then. They said Freiburg. That's actually a different place. Like Freiberg and Freiburg are not the same place. So please, you have to make sure you don't mix them up. But apparently Gordon B. Hinckley isn't as fluent in German, but I'm pretty sure this one has to be right. Things like this are fact-checked, and really fact-checked. Okay. Employment. Moyle was for many years a lawyer and part-time member of the University of Utah faculty. He was also a businessman involved in various railroad, trucking, oil, insurance, and finance businesses. During World War II, he was the director of the Petroleum Board. Yeah, talked about that too. LDS Church Service. From 1927 to 1937, Moyle was the president of the LDS Church's Cottonwood Stake, located in the southeast suburbs of Salt Lake City. He also served as chairman of the church's welfare committee. Yep, mentioned both of those things. Apostle and member of the First Presidency. Moyle was ordained an apostle and member of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles on April 10, 1947. Moyle served as second counselor in the First Presidency to Church President David O. McKay from June 12, 1959 to October 12, 1961, when he was called as first counselor. He was first counselor in the First Presidency until his death. Moyle was a successful cattleman and originated the idea of the church establishing a cattle ranch in Florida. Really? He was convinced that Florida's climate would prove ideal for raising cattle, as the key to success in that industry is growing grass. The church bought the original 54,000-acre tract in 1950, and over 50 years, the ranch grew to more than 312,000 acres. Deseret Cattle and Citrus Ranch, which is southeast of Orlando, is today the world's largest beef ranch, and the land is worth an estimated $858 million. That's crazy. I had no idea that even existed. Obviously, people in Florida are like yelling at the screen, but like, seriously, I didn't know that. I'm not from Florida. Can you tell? Moyle spearheaded much of the church's building programs in the early 1960s. He believed that the church office building, the headquarters of the LDS Church, should have been twice its size. He was also convinced that by building larger meeting houses, the church would attract more converts. If you build it, they will come, kind of an attitude. I kind of like it. It's funny. Moyle convinced McKay not to publish an account of church spending, as was customary, in order to hide the extent of the budget deficit caused by spending on buildings. Oh, gosh. That's not good. That's a serious lack of transparency there. by 1962, the deficit had reached $32 million. His optimistic building programs placed a considerable financial strain upon the church, and Mackay eventually relieved Moyle from many of his administrative responsibilities. Ooh, now that's the tea, yeah? So he invested in things, but like they weren't making a profit, like they weren't helping, and so then they ended up not being able to afford it. Crazy. The controversial baseball baptism program was Moyle's idea to increase baptisms in order to fill the church meeting houses. Missionaries would encourage young men to join sports leagues and used baptism as a prerequisite. Whoa! Yeah, I can see why that was controversial. Yeah, that's not okay. Under this approach, large numbers of young men were baptized, but very few were ever active in the church. Duh! The rush to baptize was accompanied with the establishment of baptism quotas for missionaries, and memorized missionary discussions which were to be delivered verbatim to potential converts. The rest of the apostles were largely opposed to these changes, which led to Moyle being relieved of his responsibilities in the missionary department as well. Holy cow! Yeah. Well, that's not really a good idea. That's not how people work. Moyle died of heart disease in Deer Park, Florida, age 74, and was buried at Salt Lake City Cemetery. Okay. Family. In 1920, Moyle married Clara Alberta Wright in the Salt Lake Temple. They were the parents of 6 children. One of his sons, Henry D. Moyle Jr., was the first president of the French East Mission, based in Geneva, Switzerland, starting in 1961. Okay. There you go. See also Alvin R. Dyer. Why are we seeing also Alvin R. Dyer? I don't understand how they're linked. Why? How are they linked? Weird. Huh. I don't know. We'll get to Alvin R. Dyer. He's on my list. I don't know, about a month or 2. Maybe 6 weeks. And, yeah, that's interesting. You know, his ideas at the end were just so super frustrating. It's like, dude, this is not how people work. Yeah? That's so weird. Like, he sounded like in the article by Gordon B. Hinckley that he was a super successful business person, and then he turned his business acumen to the church, and it completely fell apart. Like, dude, that was a terrible idea. Terrible. That's crazy to me. Wow. The baseball baptism program? I don't know. That just seems so weird. Like, setting up sports teams, sure. Like, there's nothing wrong with setting up sports teams that the church is involved in. And I'm pretty sure they do that. We still have a sports day here I don't know if they do it every week, but they do it semi-regularly. And it brings people in who are interested in sports, and if because of that interaction they then become interested in the church, then sure, that's fine. What's not okay is to make it prerequisite to be baptized in order to be on the sports team. Yeah, you don't do that. Besides the fact that you're going to get quote-unquote converts who are not really converts and who aren't really interested in the church. And they're just like baptismal quotas and verbatim lessons so nobody can ask questions. You know, no, they're not going to understand. They're going to be people who listened to the lessons verbatim and were just like, okay, I'm lost. And then they just keep going because they can't go back and ask questions. Yeah, like that's a terrible idea. Ugh. Like, dude, you were a missionary. You don't know how this works? It's so weird to me. So he had some terrible ideas near the end. But you can't really, like, say that makes him a bad person. He thought that they were good ideas at the time, I'm sure. But it's just weird to me. It's very strange to me that some of the ideas he had. Baptismal quotas? No. That's not how we do things here. Anyways, that was, however, very interesting. So weighing a person in the balance, was he good or bad person? It didn't really sound like he did anything terrible, except have really bad judgment, especially later in life. Makes me wonder if he didn't suffer from some sort of, like, mental deterioration, like a dementia, Alzheimer's kind of a thing. that can strike young. He didn't live to a super old age. He died at 74. But, like, at the same time, I don't know that that was the case. That they didn't mention anything related to that, and so I'm guessing that that was not the case. But it is a question that I would throw out into the ether of, like, was that an issue? Because of his very, very bad ideas. And that, you know, other people at the church had to kind of stop him. They removed him from committees, they stopped him from doing things, and they're just like, no, stop that. Like, that's enough. Yeah, you're no longer part of the missionary department. You're not going to have any administrative responsibilities because you're hiding expenditures. We have a huge deficit. Now we need to, you know, fill the hole, basically. And, you know, let's not buy anything else for a while until we no longer have a deficit, yeah? And then, you know, all the quotas and stuff. No, it's a terrible idea. But was it malicious? Probably not, yeah? So I'm going to say that that's not necessarily a sign of him being a bad person. It's just him having very poor judgment. So I would say, weighing a person in the balance, he was a good person who did good, yeah? And made some very poor choices, which were not meant to be that. Yeah, that's my opinion. You can agree or disagree with me, so let me know what you think. Have you ever heard of this person? If you have, leave me a comment below and let me know what you knew about this person before you heard this information. If you agree, if you disagree with anything, please let me know. And please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.